Look, I know Friday the 13th was this past Friday, so it would have been better to have put this up then, but things getting in the... What's up, guys? This is Courtney with half of the Brothers Deconstruction here, and I'm bringing you another review for Beyond Belief Fact or Fiction. This time it's still from season 1, when James Brolin, father of Thanos, was actually still the host. This is episode 5. As usual with Beyond Belief, 5 stories. We all have to, by the end of the episode, we all have to decide what's true and what's false. The story genres can range from like supernatural or coincidental, or even just, general, some otherworldly thing going on. So in this story, or in this episode rather, I should say, one of the reasons why I chose this episode is because just like with the previous episode of Beyond Belief that I did for Friday the 13th themed type of video for the channel. Side note, which is funny because they actually do have an episode of Beyond Belief that was based around Friday the 13th. So you think I would have gone with that episode. But going back, the reason why I chose this one, similar to the first episode that I did, is because one of the stories that turned out to be true, you can verify its veracity. So let's go ahead and talk about the first story, titled Needlepoint. This story is now mind you, this season 1 of Beyond Belief aired in the late 90s. So some of the themes or some of the things that are going on in the episodes were a product of the time. And sorry if you hear noise going on in the background. They're currently doing like lawn mowing at my apartment building. So yeah, I picked a really good time to actually record this video. Going back to it, this show was very much a sign of the late 90s. So Needlepoint is about a woman who I'm guessing she's a secretary. I almost said paralegal, but she's a secretary for a guy who's he's not a lawyer. He could be a lawyer. I'm not entirely sure what he does. I think he's a lawyer though. And he treats her like shit. He is the literal worst. He talks to her like she's stupid. He talks, he bosses her around. He's rude. Just overall, he's a terrible person. And she creates dolls as like kind of a little side business. And, she makes them from scratch. She stitches them, does, all that. And she sells them. There's one client that comes in. There's one point in the episode, in the little segment where a client comes in and he's expecting her boss is expecting her to have like this contract or whatever ready. And he says to her, well, why don't you have it? What are you doing standing here? And she looks at the client, looks back at him and says, you told me to withhold the contract so he would have to come up here and sign it. And basically he's like, are you calling me a liar? No, I'm sure it's my mistake. Things like that. So that's the type of relationship that we see between the two. But the funniest, well, I won't say funny, but the ending of the story is that he fires her and she ends up she makes another doll, but it's a voodoo doll of him. And she like sticks it in the arm and he has like this real bad arm pain. And I can't remember if he ends up having a heart attack or something like that. But yeah, she basically creates a voodoo doll of him and exacts revenge upon him. This story was turned out to be fiction. But it's one of those stories where you get such an unlikable person that you can't wait for the person that they're tormenting or verbally or mentally or physically abusing or whatever type of torment they're doing. You can't wait for them to get their comeuppance. So that's what happens at the end of this episode, but it was a story that they came up with. The second story is titled A Toy to the Rescue. And this is about a little boy who has like this teddy bear that he loves. And long story short, like his sister is older, probably mid-teens. He's maybe 9 or 10. And, you know, they kind of have that sibling relationship where he's annoying to her. I'm the youngest, so I know exactly what's going on here. Yeah, he ends up getting sick and ends up dying in the hospital. And after the girl, his sister and his dad, you know, visit, they're at the hospital. He passes away. They leave, but then she says, no, he needs that bear. We need to get him the bear. He doesn't look right without it. And she's very adamant that she needs to get this bear to him so, you know, he can at least be with that. She gets the bear back to him, and then he comes back to life. It's as if the bear rescued him and kind of, you know, gave him his life back and whatever like that. Turns out that was true. Now, obviously, the whole thing would be beyond belief in any of these episodes that are deemed true. One, it's it's extremely hard to research the specific stories because we're dealing with kernel of truth, which is, if there's such a story, I can tell you a ghost story and I can say that it's true, but what part of the story is true? So this is about a kid who died and was brought back to life once he was reunited with a stuffed teddy bear that he had. What part of the story is true? Is it a kid that, you know, was pronounced dead but ended up coming back to life? Is it a kid that was in the hospital that was sick and he started to get better once he was kind of given this teddy bear, his favorite teddy bear? What part of the story is true? So this story was deemed true at the end of the episode. But, you know, that just makes you think about a lot of the stories, I should say, within each episode in this series. What's the kernel of truth between all of them? Which is why I love the series, because one, you know, it just has a terrible charm with its acting, and two, the stories are so outlandish when one comes up as true, it makes you wonder what part of it was true. Moving on, another story that, you know, makes you wonder about the kernel of truth. The third story is called Mystery Lock. It's about this guy and his elderly aunt who's very, very childlike and naive. But this guy, I guess he might be a drug dealer, or he's into some bad stuff. But he goes over his aunt's apartment and he hides a package. I don't know if it's drugs. I don't know if it's money. It's a brown paper bag that's kind of folded. He slips it under one of the cushions of the couch. And he hides it there. He gets her a new lock because he just walked in. He didn't even have to use the key that he had. And the guy from the lock business is like, nobody will walk through this door with intent to harm you, I guarantee it. With that being said, there are instances where people come to visit and they have intent to harm her, and she tries to unlock the door and she can't. So it's a deadbolt lock that has to be unlocked from the inside. If you have a key, you can lock it from the outside, but from the inside, you have to unlock it with a key as well. It's weird. It doesn't work when she tries to let these people in. So she's coming home. One guy kind of, you know, is watching her, follows her upstairs. He's kind of delayed. He doesn't walk right behind her, but she goes to the apartment. He notices her, gets into the building, follows her upstairs, or finds out where she lives, and, you know, he knocks on the door as a person pleading for help. Meanwhile, he unflips his butterfly knife and he's waiting for her to open the door so he can come in and rob her. She tries to unlock the door. It doesn't unlock. Police end up coming by. The door unlocks that time, and they say, hey, have you seen, was this the guy that was at your door? Your neighbor said you had a disturbance the other day. She's like, the door wouldn't unlock, so I can't tell you if that was him or not. And they say, oh, well, it's a good thing that it didn't, because he's been robbing people of their Social Security checks. So this is why I say I love this show. That just goes to show, oh, this lock literally doesn't open for anybody that with bad intentions toward her. Her nephew comes back because these guys are like, hey, he calls, asks her if she's going to be home. She says, yeah, I'm going to be home for a while, I guess. He's like, oh, okay, well, I'll come by really, really quickly. And so he has to go up there and get the package. His key doesn't work. She tries to unlock the door and it doesn't work. And then she slowly thinks back to what the guy who installed the lock said. Nobody will come through this door with an intent to harm you. And so she starts thinking, and mind you, she's also called, like, back in the day, you used to be able to press 0 to talk to an operator and kind of get, have them look up like a business or something like that. But she called basically 311, the information hotline, to talk to somebody from Forever Safe Lock and Key, I think was the name of the business, but there was no listing of it. But fast forward, she thinks to what he said, and then she thinks about, why would Brad, which was her nephew's name, her name is Connie, why would Brad do this to me? Why not? I would never think that. So there's a voiceover from Brad saying that the guys thought that I had told her their names and they were out to get her. So I had to lay low for a while. Turns out that story was deemed true. Again, what part of the story was true? Was it somebody had a lock installed from a business and there was no listing of the business? Was that due because it went out of business, or did it, was there some other means? Was it, a kid who hid a package from some drug dealers at his aunt's house and they made him go back and get it, but he couldn't? The fourth story was titled A House on Baker Street. It's about a girl whose boyfriend is like a typical bad boy. Her dad doesn't like the relationship, doesn't want her seeing him. She still sees him, and I think he grounds her, and there's weird stuff going on in the house. The mother ends up talking to a neighbor about it, and it turns out that a similar thing happened with a family that lived in the house, where the father didn't like the boyfriend of the daughter and separated the two, and the boyfriend came back and burnt the house down. And he had like these super bright blue eyes. And yeah, that, one of the weird things that was happening around the house was that the daughter was on the couch or in her room or something like that. And there was a chair in the room, and it had a crease in it as if somebody was sitting in the chair. And then it just lifted up like they got up and moved. And she started freaking out, and that's when the mom talked to the neighbor. But then, that same neighbor saw some suspicious person lurking around the house. She said she called the police and then waited outside for the police to arrive. When they did, she's like, oh, I'm the one who called. Don't shoot, don't shoot. This shit is not realistic at all, by the way. But she ends up, the person has like a torch, when I say a torch, I literally mean like a torch, like a stick with a t-shirt or a rag around it that's lit on fire, like a literal torch about to set the house on fire again. And the police stop the person, telling them to turn around, freeze, with your hands up. Person turns around, and it turns out that it's the daughter of this family, essentially possessed by the spirit of the boy who burnt the house down previously. And she even had like glowing blue eyes. That was his distinct feature. That story was false. Nobody's gonna call the police and then wait for them to arrive at like said crime scene or potential crime scene. If you think somebody's house is about to get broken into, you're not going to call the police and then hide behind a tree 20 yards away. It's just not going to happen. Now, the fifth and final story is the real reason why I chose this episode, and it's titled The Train. And the way that his dad, James, the way that James Brolin breaks it down, and this is one of those stories where there is no reenactment for it. It's just literally him sitting down telling the story. Jonathan Frakes had a couple of other stories that he did like this as well. But James sits down and tells a story. I think it's in New York or something like that. At a train station, a busy train station, a famous actor walks up, notices a young college student that's kind of close to the edge of the platform. He ends up getting, with everybody kind of pushing and whatever like that. After the train arrives, he kind of falls in between like the cars or something like that. And then the actor helps the boy up and pulls him from, I guess getting run over by the train. And so it turns out that the actor was the brother of another famous actor, and the son, and and then the student, the college student, was the son of a politician, and that actor's brother killed that son's father. And it turns out that the actor was Edwin Booth, and the student was Robert Lincoln. Obviously, well, not obviously, but I should say, if you don't know the connection between these two names, James Wilkes Booth, who was Edwin's brother, killed Abraham Lincoln. Like, in the story that he described, it happened 3 weeks later. I don't know if that was the actual time frame or not. But this is an actual true story. Edwin Booth saved the life of Robert Lincoln from being hit by a train or run over by a train not too soon before his brother killed his father. So that was the story that made me choose this episode, because it's a story that you can go back and actually, clarify the veracity of. You can find out if it's true, and it is. That overall, that's my kind of like review / discussion about episode 5 of season 1 of Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction. I have more episodes, or I'll be talking about more episodes later on, or as we continue on. And I think for Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction, it'll be, I think most of my videos based on this series will more so be discussions about the stories themselves instead of straight up reviews for the episode. Because there's nothing, like I've stated before, there's really nothing super amazing about Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction. A lot of the acting is really, really over the top. It's hammy. It's nothing, this amazing story, anything like that. It's not, it's not groundbreaking television, or it wasn't groundbreaking television. So I think more so I'm just going to be discussing the different stories and, what parts might be true or what parts I think were probably fabricated or stuff like that. There are a couple of podcasts that go over the episodes and talk about stuff like this as well. It's an interesting show to watch because it scared the crap out of me when I was a kid, some of the episodes, and the music is eerie and creepy, and just overall it's a cool show to watch because of its charm, again, because of the acting and just the story themselves, and the fact that some of these outlandish ass stories are being presented as true. So again, I appreciate the support, whether it's 1, 5, 10, or 100 views. So yeah, I'll catch up with you guys later. I know you peeped the Wolfpack stuff, so don't turn your back on the Wolfpack.